I was getting nowhere. Barker is like a bad water pipe. I could spend half the day trying to get something out of him, then he would gush out in a torrent of words and promptly clog up again. Barker poured me a cup of tea, and I emptied it in one swallow, then grimaced. Green tea is a misnomer, I think. It's more gold than green, and it tastes more like dishwater than anything else. I know many people go through a whole lot of trouble so that the tea grown in Fujian ends up on our Newington breakfast table, but if it were all for my benefit, they needn't have bothered. I sighed and went downstairs. Sunday is the only morning when Dumoulard does not dominate our kitchen. He makes up for his absence with a bakery's worth of sweets. Privileged to be the only other person allowed to touch Etienne's coffee pot, I made myself coffee and looked over the assortment of pastries. Though I was sad to see the apple and caramel pie was gone, I chose a currant scone instead and put a dollop of clotted cream from the larder on top. After I'd eaten, Barker came down in what I've come to call his Sunday suit. A frock coat less ostentatious than his normal wear, with a black tie. Mac had set out Barker's Bible on the entry table by the door, a book so well thumbed all the lettering on the cover had worn away. We walked the short block to the Baptist Metropolitan Tabernacle, and when we got there and were just about to go inside, he made a telling gesture. He reached out, and his hand lightly touched one of the marble columns. I knew what he was thinking, for I was thinking the same. How long would it be before we would be enjoying another quiet Sunday here again? The Reverend Charles Haddon Spurgeon had one or two words to say about peace in his sermon that morning. While many pastors across London were no doubt calling for peace after the recent bombing, Barker's pastor warned us of false peacemakers and assured us that there would be no peace in the world until the Lord's return. It was a pessimistic attitude, perhaps, but I didn't doubt it was true. There is always some deviltry afoot in the world, and not a little of it here in our corner itself. Afterward, I was looking forward to a nice lunch before whatever my employer had planned for the day, but apparently he thought otherwise. He raised a cane for a cab, rather than shatter the Sabbath peace with one of his whistles, and we bundled in. "The city," he called out. "I suppose you can make do with a roll and coffee in the East End until we can eat properly, lad?" "Certainly, sir," I said. After all, who has need of a nice Sunday dinner when one can eat a tooth-breaking bun topped with stale onions and poppy seeds? "It is time to visit the lane, Thomas." There was no need to ask which lane he was talking about. Our first case had begun when a poor Jewish scholar had been found crucified on a telegraph pole in Petticoat Lane, the city's Sunday market. It is a farrago in the middle of the Jewish quarter, where one can buy everything from Chinese silk to Scottish tweed. Most of the clothing was used, and the Jews were old hands at repairing and reselling items good as new. Now we were in need of clothing for our disguises as Van Ryn and his assistant, and it would be suspicious if we presented ourselves in a completely new wardrobe. What better place could we have come to than the lane? On a normal Sunday, Middlesex Street, to give its more prosaic name, resembles a football scrum, with enough people knotted together to fill half of London. It functions, somehow, and everyone eventually reaches his own destination. Barker, at least, knew where he was going. He stepped up to one of the more established tailor shops, with its hoardings overhead in Hebrew and Roman letters, and spoke to the proprietor. The latter pulled his measuring tape from his pocket and invited us into the shop's interior. My employer had spent a great deal of money on our wardrobes, most recently equipping me with hats, coats, and shoes, but I was not surprised to see him lift the sleeve of a disreputable-looking garment and ask to try it on. He selected 4 suits for himself and 3 for me. We were fitted by the proprietor, who was doing his best to keep his thoughts to himself, if not for his raised eyebrows. I knew what Barker was thinking, however. In our ordinary clothes, we would never be able to fit into a group of Irish misfits and radicals.